And if you're not familiar with this game, this is a cooperative stealth-based campaign game where players are going to be trying to complete different scenarios by achieving different objectives. And of course, there are some core mechanisms that all of these scenarios will follow, but each of them can play quite a bit different from each other, with them ranging from escort missions, assassinations, all the way to tower defense. And there are a whole bunch of different assassins that players can play as, each with their own unique special ability, as well as ability cards that can only be used once per scenario that you can actually upgrade and expand as you move throughout the campaign. And you can also equip them with different gear and items that also carry forward into the future scenarios. Players will be taking turns spending their action cubes to do things like move around on the modular board, attack enemy units, or even perform special actions and search for equipment. But like I said, this is a stealth-based game, and at the start of the game, you're going to be completely invisible to the enemies, but each time that you enter a tile that has an enemy, you're going to have to roll a die to determine how alert they are of your presence. After all the players have performed their actions, the enemies will then get an activation, and then depending on how alert they are of the players, more and more of them could spawn out on the board. Getting discovered does make the game considerably more difficult, as more and more enemies will be getting in your way, eventually to the point where you will end up losing because you just won't be able to deal with it. But it's not necessarily a bad thing if you are able to escape quick enough, but it is also something that you can expect to happen from scenario to scenario, as assassinations tend to rarely go unnoticed. But the new expansion is going to be taking players to a completely different part of the world in the Cambodian jungle, and it's going to be introducing all sorts of new enemies, new weapons, and new events and mechanisms that players can try to use to their advantage. And one of the biggest changes with this one is that this one does venture into a more open world type game, as there's going to be a sort of overworld map that you'll be able to traverse, and then decide which memories you want to jump into, then activating that scenario. And this one is not a standalone expansion, even though this game and the original could be played completely independent of each other. But in order to keep costs down for the people that already own the original game, this game does share components with the original release, so you will need the original box if you do want to venture into the expansion content. And of course, they both will be offered in this campaign, so if you want to check them out, I have links in the description below.